Hey, friends and family from HES, I bet you know who this character is. Yep, it's Senor Grinch, and he's insisting that you want to hear his story. How the Grinch stole Christmas. Cómo el Grinch robó la Navidad. Fue escrito por el famoso y muy querido Dr. Seuss. This was written by the famous and beloved author illustrator Dr. Seuss. ¿Listos para escuchar? Ready to listen? Here we go. Okay, Mr. Grinch, we're gonna read your story. Woohoo! Cómo el Grinch robó la Navidad. How the Grinch stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled, his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming, for tomorrow he knew. All the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Boom. Oh, my goodness. The noise. Y grandes y pequeños, debía quien se sentarían en un festín y se podrían celebrar y celebrarían sin fin y tendrían fiestas, fiestas, fiestas y más fiestas. Tendrían banquetes con pudín de quién y carne medio crudo de quién, lo cual era algo que el Grinch ni soportaba ni le parecía bien. Los quienes celebrando mucho con tanto ruido. And then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They'd feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it. Now I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Oh my goodness, he's mad. Entonces, tuvo una idea terrible. Al Grinch se le ocurrió un plan maravilloso y horrible. Uh-oh! I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat, and he chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, "If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead." So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Ay, pobrecito de perrito Max. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Get up!" and the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Grinchy Claus, ha ha ha! Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first things to go." That dastardly Grinch! Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present: pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums, and he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. Oh no! Luego corrió a la cocina para llevarse el festín. Agarró la carne cruda y también tomó el pudín. El Grinch vació la nevera, lo hizo en un santiamén, se llevó hasta la última lata de picadillo. ¿De quién? Oh no! El Grinch está en la cocina. He's in the kitchen taking everything for the feast. ¡Qué horror! Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." No! El árbol de Navidad! And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" Ay, pobrecita, la pequeñita Susie Lou. But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head. He got her a drink and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. ¡Qué malito el Grinch! Metió por la chimenea la comida que encontró. Ya solo me queda el árbol. Y la leña para el fuego fue lo último que robó. Luego el muy mentiroso por la chimenea subió. Solo clavos y cordeles en las paredes dejó. Solo un grano de comida se le olvidó en un rincón que ni siquiera alcanzaba para llenar un ratón. He left nothing more than a little crumb that wasn't even enough for un ratoncito, a mouse. Then he did the same thing in all the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. I. It was 1/4 dawn. All the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. He's got it all. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo. Oh, qué triste. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. Mas no era triste. En verdad, sonaba a felicidad. Pero ¿cómo podía ser tan feliz la realidad? Y cuando miró hacia abajo, vaya menuda sorpresa, con ojos desorbitados, negaba la cabeza. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags, and he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. Quizás la Navidad no sea lo que había pensado. Quizás la Navidad tenga otro significado. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. Ho, ho, ho. Well, our friend Senor Grinch turned out to be not so bad after all when he realized that Christmas means a lot more than the presents. Muy feliz Navidad.